Broadcasting from Orchard Park, New York,
and Boca Raton, Florida,
it's the Freight 360 podcast. From freight broker sales tips to sports talk, this podcast is all about helping you grow as a freight broker. We're your hosts, Nate Cross
and Benjamin Kowalski.
Let's talk freight. Welcome back and happy 300 Freight 360. We've made a milestone here, Ben, episode 300. I think the last big one we had was like 200 or 250. Yeah. I remember Trey was on like episode 100, and then I think like 200 or 250 maybe. I was like on the road for Army, and I cracked a White Claw while we were recording.
I do, yes.
But it's I'm drinking water today, so no adult beverages. But anyway, man, congrats to what is this? Our sixth year? Yeah, cheers. But as a way to give you guys what you want, we've looked at our best content, and we're going to pack a lot of it into one episode today. This is great for anyone that's new or growing or just wants to learn. We're going to go through our best advice for freight brokers in today's episode. And a lot of it, if you want a deeper dive into any of these sections or specifics, there's probably a full-length episode on it. So this is a great one to keep the engine all tuned up and remind yourself of the little things you got to make sure you're focusing on to be successful. But first, if you haven't, there's 299 other episodes and a whole bunch of Q&A sessions and short-form content. You go to the website, freight360.net, or our YouTube channel, and share us with your friends, leave us comments, ask your questions, sign up for the newsletter. You can check out the Freight Broker Basics course as well for an educational option for yourself or your team. And we appreciate all those of you who have been with us for many, many years. So, Ben, what's going on? Is it like super hot in Florida as the whole country's in a heat wave right now, or what?
You know, it's funny. Like, I keep seeing that on the news and like different articles, but like,
what's the temperature right now in Boca?
I think it's crazy hot. It's 89. I mean, I will say this. Like, we were at the beach yesterday. Like, I think the real feel was like 103. But like, it was that last week. I mean, I was telling you in the last time we recorded, like, I really notice it because I'm outside playing tennis this year, which is different than any of the other years. Like, playing golf, I don't notice it as much because, like, you get back in and out of the cart. Like, I feel like I can play all day.
I totally do during golf, man. But I also don't play tennis, so I don't have that to relate it to.
Let's see. What is the real feel right now? Yeah, I mean, feels like 89. I mean,
feels like
it is
98
89.
in Orchard Park right now. It's 86 degrees accurate, or like actual temperature feels like 98. It's because it's humid. But dude, I was outside yesterday and the day before just doing like stuff around the house, like yard work, and I showered 3 times yesterday and 3 times.
Like Florida. You know what else I've been doing that I think might help a little bit is like I've been doing the sauna a lot more. Like I try to do it at least 3 or 4 days a week. In the morning, I do it before the cold plunge, and like I do breathing exercises like in there just to get used to sitting in. Mine only goes up to like 160, but like it's making it easier to tolerate the heat other portions of the day.
Well, I love summer heat, so bring it on. That's what I say. You got people who are complaining about it. I'm like, yeah, you won't be complaining in 6 months when it's literally Christmas.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do we got? NHL has wrapped up. I think we already hit on that last week. The Florida Panthers won. And then NBA wrapped up. We're recording on Monday this week, so I think it was last night. Don't follow NBA, but somebody won.
Somebody won. Somebody didn't.
To all the listeners out there that follow basketball, congrats if that was your team. I'm a baseball guy, and the Red Sox actually traded Rafael Devers last week to the San Francisco Giants, who then the Red Sox played the Giants, and Devers hits a home run against the Red Sox. So it was like some weird karma there. But outside of that, man, you got mini camps going on for football. I actually put on NFL Network this morning for like the first time in a couple months, just trying to get myself back into like NFL mentality. We'll see. News. I mean, there's a lot of news going on in the world right now. But what's going on in the freight world? Anything?
Nothing.
Well,
nothing.
I guess related, because we were just talking about off air. I definitely want to get Sal Mercogliano back on here again soon, because he had a very interesting post yesterday on Twitter about maritime trade, because
We bombed Iran.
We bombed
and
Iran,
if they
and
close the
Iran,
the Hormuz Strait.
Yeah, Iran basically threatened to close the one of the shipping passages. And Sal had this post about how, like, fun fact, like, a country does not have the authority to basically do what they were saying. But I'd be curious his take on, like, rising conflicts in general in the Middle East, how that will impact trade as it funnels into the U.S. and pricing and shipping delays, things like that. I would be really curious to see. We'll try to get him on this summer at some point again and follow up on that, because that, that could be on the horizon. But what do you got?
Two kind of related things I heard recently. Somebody was talking about that, and they said, one, if we actually were at war with Iran, like, we don't have the ability to defend against, I think, supersonic rockets that go faster than the speed of sound, which Iran has. Technically, I think Russia has, and maybe China, which you might know more about being in the army, but they were like, yeah, like, you can't defend against them in the same way that you do other types of rockets. And they were like,
no, you just try to take them out so they can't use them.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. On the freight horizon here, let's see what we got. I feel like nothing big in the freight world. I feel like it's the same stuff every week. Like, more companies are going bankrupt. Tariffs, this, that, and the other thing. But as far as, like, industry news, I feel like there's been nothing terribly breaking lately. I will say, the trends that I've seen lately, and this is just something to be vigilant of as you move into the busy summer months when we have, like, 4th of July coming up and people taking off and people kind of, like, losing their vigilance, per se, is the types of, like, fraud and cargo theft are getting very, very, like, they're getting very complex now. So, like, if there's ever a time to, like, double down on your standard operating procedures and your use of tools to implement safeguards, now is the time. We have a good listener question that we'll answer that'll come out on the final mile on the next episode of that. And I'm sure we'll hit on some SOPs today on the episode, but I've definitely been seeing more and more of it and hearing more and more about it. So, yeah. AI. I feel like AI is like popping out left and right. New features within existing platforms and new tools out there. So, outside of that, I got nothing else on news.
Same.
All right, cool, man.
Jump into it.
Let's get into some good content today. So it's episode 300. We wanted to talk about some of the best advice that we've given over the years. And ironically, this goes to prove two things. Number one, the AI, and number two, how much content we've put out there. I was able to use AI to tell me to compile a list of the best advice that we've given, and it came out almost 100% accurate. So, which is pretty cool that, we've put out that much content and helped this many people. So really happy to be there. But we'll go through, there's no particular order on these, but the first one that came up was to start with a niche, and it's really a bigger picture. We've used the phrase prospecting with a purpose, right? Which is always like, don't just, when you start new as a broker or in a sales role, you don't necessarily want to run with the rest of the herd, and you also don't want to just do what the guy next to you is doing just because that's what he's doing, right? You want to have some intentionality behind it. So, like, the 3-part thing that we've always said with prospecting with a purpose is, like, have a niche. So, like, go after something specific, which was, pick a commodity or maybe a location of the country that has a similar circumstances when it comes to their capacity, or maybe it's a specific type of equipment. You want to work with specialized open deck types of things. So, you see people whose email signature is like, we handle full truckload, LTL, air, ocean, expedite, final mile, white glove. And it's like, do you really? Do you actually? Like, I remember the first brokerage I worked at, we, like, advertised in brochures and on our website that we did air and ocean, and I was like, we don't do an air and ocean. What are we talking about here? Oh, my dog's going nuts.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think it's important that, like, you make your customers aware of what things you can service for them once they are a customer. But I certainly don't think that's what you lead with, because, I mean, whenever you're looking for anything, like, you want somebody that's really good at what they do, not just okay at doing everything.
Yep.
Right?
Think about it like, dude, if you want to go buy like a high-end TV, are you going to go to Walmart and ask some general associate there about a super good TV? Or are you going to go to the Magnolia home theater section of your upscale Best Buy, or
Yes.
a local like home theater like store? It's the same concept. Yep. We'll move on to other ones. Pick up the phone. Relationships drive the business. Cold calls, follow-ups, and regular check-ins are non-negotiable. So that's kind of a word salad there, but I've always been of the mindset that I think a lot of business happens over the phone. I think it's more effective that way. When people ask us like, hey, what's the best way to prospect? Should I go knock doors? There's like a bunch of trucks in and around my neighborhood all the time, or in my local area or city. And while I think you might be able to get a lot done and build rapport face-to-face, it's not a very efficient use of your time if that's the only way you're going to go about prospecting. Because you can make, you might be able to make 5 visits in a day. You can make 200 phone calls in a day. Also, if you're only going to work in your area, you're limiting yourself to everywhere else in the country. Like, I remember we had a girl from TIA that we coached a couple years ago that was like, I grew up in the agricultural industry, live on a farm, and there's a bunch of farms in my area. I'd love to prospect them because they're right here. I'm like, that's great. I said, but don't only do that, right? Because you can pick up the phone and call a farm 3 states away who's moving the exact same product in a similar cyclical nature throughout the year, right?
Yeah, and also, like, in any type of prospecting, like, I feel like it's good to kind of, like, like, have your ammunition kind of loaded before you go to shoot, I guess, is a kind of an analogy. Meaning, like, if I'm going to go pick up the phone, to the first point of, like, finding a niche, there is basically one opener I am using for all of that group of prospects, right? Like, if it's because this area just had a storm, like, I am addressing that likely need in every call. It's a little bit different, but that's my opener, right? That's the reason I'm calling you. If you're going to bother somebody and make a cold call, you've got to get to what's in it for them as fast as possible, right? Same thing, like, I've door knocked in lots of different things, especially early on in my sales career. And, like, one, you learn real fast. You just start walking into businesses and you don't know who you're asking for or what you're asking about. Like, it gets real awkward and uncomfortable real quick. Like, you're just walking into a building and you're like, hey, who's in charge of shipping around here? And, like, the secretary's staring at you, and, like,
Yep.
You feel super nervous already. And it's just like, you don't have a clear direction you want to go, right?
Yeah.
But when you are selling, like, you need to lead that conversation, or at least have a plan for where you want it to go. So, like, if I'm going to go knock on doors, I always, like, canvas by phone first. Because, one, I hopefully know who it is I'm trying to speak to before I knock on their door, for one. 2, hopefully find when a convenient time for day is to stop into is ideal. 3, if I know those 2, I'm probably going to take something, because now it's very effective, like bagels, coffee, whatever, right? And it's really hard to do that if you're just knocking on random doors and then trying to figure out who you want to talk to there. So it's like, hey, if I've got companies, say there's a business park, an industrial park, a bunch of farms, whatever, that are grouped close to my house, I want to hit those, or my office. I'm first going to look up all the companies. Then I'm going to go search LinkedIn and see if I can find who the shipping managers are. Then I'm going to go to Zoom Info and at least get a pretty good idea of who they are. And then I'm going to call all of those companies first and see if I can speak to them. And then I'm going to make my second touch showing up in person, because now I'm going and going, hey, is Jimmy around, Sally? Like, I know who answered the phone when I called, and I know who the guy is I'm trying to reach. And I can say something like, yeah, I connected with him on a call last week. He said if I was in the area, I should swing by around now. Now, there's a much higher likelihood I'm going to speak to them. I've got a reason to speak to them. All of that gets so much easier.
Agreed, 100%. So to that point, it made me think to a couple of different things. So years ago, I'm trying to think when this was. When I worked at Conway, all of our sales was outside sales, and it was territorial. So, like, it was, you would make calls, but, like, we're going, like, these are basically in the LTL world, like, the companies, they're shipping LTL, and you're either trying to get more of their business or you're trying to get business from a competitor, right? So everyone knows who all the LTL players are in the game. So it was very much about like, I can't call 3 states away because that's not my territory. I do want to go in person because I want to have time to sit down with this person, grab lunch with them, get them in a comfortable setting, and build rapport, and then we'll talk shop as deems necessary. But in freight, time is money, and efficiency is key. That's where Levity comes in. Imagine automating your email operations to do more with less effort. Levity connects directly to your inboxes, extracting vital information from emails and attachments in real time. It seamlessly integrates with your TMS, empowering you to quote faster, build loads more efficiently, and book more freight in less time. Whether it's incoming emails from shippers or carriers, Levity's got you covered. It understands any language, any format, and even interprets non-standard formatting. Visit levity.ai today to sign up and get started.
Tired of struggling to find accurate rates and the right carriers for your freight? With DAT1, you can access more than 500 million posted loads and trucks every year. That's 3 times more capacity than any other load board. Plus, their integrated freight management system makes it easy to cover loads 24/7. They have the most trusted network of carriers, brokers, and shippers in the country. You'll get real-time rates on every lane so you know exactly how much a shipment will cost before you commit to it. Plus, you get instant access to top bids from qualified carriers around the country. Get 10% off your first year of DAT1 when you visit the link in the show notes.
In our industry with brokerage, where it's not territory based, very, very different. Like sky's the limit as far as like who you can prospect. And I think about the customer visits that I've done in brokerage for full truckload. I had 2 that I did that were in my town a few years ago. No, 3. They were in the Buffalo area, and they were great to build rapport, but that was not the first time we talked. Like I didn't just cold arrive there. Like it was a lot of conversations beforehand, and then it turned into like routine visits at a couple places. Like you said, like we're taking in a sub platter around Christmas time, or donuts or bagels or whatever the case might be, Christmas cookies, you name it. Another one I did, which is a city over, which required a little bit of driving. Like I'm definitely planning that one out in advance because I'm wasting hours of my day round trip driving there and to and from. But that was more of a, hey, this was actually like a beverage company that did contract brewing for different like alcoholic beverages. So they did like Mike's Hard Lemonade, for example, and some other like basically like, hey, a brewery that wants to get their beer brewed and distributed that's in an area that's not where they're based out of. So like, let's say I'm based in Rhode Island, but I want to be distributing in, New York and Pennsylvania. Well, I might have a contract brewery in Western New York, so I can reach that, wheel and spoke. So what do? We went and got a brief tour of the facility, sat down at the brewery there, had lunch, and talked about big picture stuff, but also just build rapport about family life, what's going on outside of work. And those are great for 2 things. You build rapport and you get eyes on the actual facility. You can see the issues that drivers talk about with, that sign doesn't make sense when I turn here. But again, like the initial conversation happened via phone. And I think that, not to like beat a dead horse here, but when we say you can make 200 phone calls a day, you can literally make 200 phone calls a day. It doesn't mean you're going to have 200 conversations that day. But it's a numbers game, and it always has been in our industry, and it's always going to be. That's why you see AI phone companies and phone systems that are out there now, and AI this and that people are trying to find the shortcut to get you past all the nonsense of calling. That's why you had auto dialers that were around, even 10, 15 years ago, right? Trying to reduce the amount of downtime in between. But the phone is king when it comes to this. If you're going to try and hide behind your keyboard and email campaigns to get new customers, it's not going to work. I have had people that swore to me, I've mastered this, it's going to work. Never works. So pick up the phone. If you are close by, by all means, meet in person, and definitely use meeting in person as a way to strengthen that relationship. But the phone's huge.
Well, our whole industry functions on relationships and trust. Why? Because it's a commodity business, meaning like you can pretty much interchange a broker and a carrier, and another one can perform pretty similar to the same work, except in 2 instances. when things don't go right and they don't get the information, or somebody just isn't paying attention and they don't know what's going on, right? So trust has a huge value in this industry, and I can guarantee you don't have a relationship with anybody unless you've had a conversation with them. Like, I can't think of any example in any aspect of life where you could say you have a relationship with somebody that you haven't actually talked to. I guess maybe you could say that if you've had really in-depth conversations online about maybe something specific, but even in that scenario, like, it's nowhere near the type of relationship you have. Because, and somebody was talking about this recently, is like, well, we used to talk about this a lot. It was like 90% of communication is like nonverbal when you're like talking to somebody. It's like your gestures, your facial expressions, how you're saying what you're saying, not just the words, right? So it's like your tone of voice, your inflections, your energy, all of these things mean things. And when you're communicating, so even when you're on the phone, you lose a lot of that, but you still have a lot of it. Now you go one step beyond that and you talk about text messages, right? Or emails. You lose all of the context, all of the personality. All you're getting is the information, which leaves tons of room for error, miscommunication, misinterpretation. Somebody was talking about the other day, I think it was on Joe Rogan, they said like the most upsetting text message they polled a lot of people was just the letter K, right? Like when somebody responds K, and it's mostly because everybody just runs through their head trying to think like, well, what did they mean? Are they mad at me? Are they upset? Did I say something that upset them? Why are they being so short with me? It's all because there's just a lack of context and no real anything around it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's funny because when you were talking through, you don't really know someone until you like get to talk with them. I had a call with someone earlier today. It was basically like they're trying to sell. We're looking to upgrade something at our company, and we're exploring a bunch of different options out there. And I get on the phone with this girl, and she's talking to me like I know her, and I'm like, huh? She's like, yeah, we've been connected on LinkedIn for 10 years, blah blah blah. And I was like, I've never talked to you before though. And she treated it. She's like, yeah, I just wanted to say it's, it's good to talk to you again. And I was like, what? And then by the end of that conversation, she's like, you know what? I don't think we've actually ever talked before. And I was like, no, we haven't. But it's almost the way that it made me feel weird that she was treating it that way. Whereas throughout the next 20 minutes, we actually did build a little rapport through conversation. So
I don't want to go on a huge tangent, but there's this thing I've read about. It's called parasocial relationships, where you hear somebody talk in their voice so much that you feel like you know them, but they don't know you, right? So take, for instance, I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? So whether it's Tim Ferriss or one of these guys, I've listened to probably hundreds of hours of them having in-depth conversations with people they know. So you feel like you kind of know them. That's why they're engaging, but they don't know you. In fact, the person that was talking about this there was a business interview with, I think it was a porn star that was making a ton of money. And she's like, it is the weirdest thing ever, because she's like, people will come up to me in public and talk to me like they know me. And she's like, and also there's stalkers and really actually some serious issues with that industry, I guess, and things like this. And she's like, yeah, people see you and hear you talk so much that they feel like they know you, but they've actually never actually had a conversation with you.
Yeah. That's wild, man. Yeah, I guess treat every conversation where it's at. And one of the next ones on our list too was qualify before you quote and all that.
That's a big one.
We've told the story numerous times of 30 minutes of great conversation, and then you realize they're not a decision maker. Right?
Or they ship one LTL a month.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I had a guy, it was almost exactly that. We were doing a cold calling session. This is a few years back. And I did it where I'm muted. I'm just listening and I'm going to give him feedback at the end. And he got to the point where the guy, it wasn't LTL, but the guy had it was a farm, and they had one shipment that would go out of whatever their product was every 2 months or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, you just wasted so much time. No, I shouldn't say wasted, but it could have been used better, right? You probably early on want to know what are certain very objective facts about this shipper that are relevant to us, right? And we talk about, like, we've got a list of like questions to ask on our website, and like one of them is, what methods of shipping are you typically doing? Is it full truckload? Do they try to partial things out? What's the frequency? Is it every day? Is it they've got a few a week? Because those matter. Because if a company is moving one shipment every 2 months, not a great use of your time. There are plenty of customers at my brokerage where we've got brokers that they service a customer once every 2 or 3 months. And those are great. Those are like little pebbles that you can add into your jar. But ultimately, like, you want the big boulders that are going to be like your go-to, like a good solid like 3 or 4 repeat customers that you literally become part of their logistics and supply chain within their company, because they're relying on you for not just capacity, but also like keeping a pulse on the freight market and what's going on and trends and where things are headed, and also how to handle problems when they happen. Whereas like someone you deal with every 2 to 3 months, you really never have that much of a rapport. You're very replaceable. So definitely make sure you're asking the right questions. So,
well, my favorite qualifying question to this day, and like there are always going to be examples outside of this, but it's a good rule of thumb, and this is beaten to my head at TQO, was like, you gotta get, what is their weekly full truckload volume number? Get to that question as quick as you can, because that's really your qualifying line. And like the way my manager, who like trained me in this business, explained it, and it makes a lot of sense. He's like, if they're not shipping about 20 to 25 truckloads a week, they probably aren't going to have too high of a need for a broker. It doesn't mean they don't, and there are plenty of examples. I've had customers that ship 10 loads a week, but they always use a broker because like they don't have a transportation department. So they give everything to one broker, and you can make good margins because they care more about service than price. Construction is a really good example of that. Like they're not going to have a logistics person, but when they got projects, they're giving everything to one guy. They want you to handle everything, and everything's got to be there on time. Cost is usually second to service, right?
Yeah.
But for most
they're going to build it
companies,
into their overall like price of the project. You know what I mean?
yeah. And they just add that on, literally, to the customer pays the bill.
You've seen the headlines. Freight fraud isn't going anywhere. But if you're a QuickScope customer, you're not seeing it in your business. QuickScope is a cutting-edge, load-level visibility tool that stops fraud before it starts, right where it happens. Inside the transaction, no noise, just results. With unlimited usage and by far the most cost-effective product on the market, QuickScope delivers real value without the bloated price tag or platform confusion. And here's the kicker. Version 2 of QuickScope drops this summer, packed with powerful new features and AI integrations that'll make your visibility game even stronger. Sign up today and you'll be locked in at today's pricing when version 2 goes live. Stop chasing fraud. Start stopping it. Visit quickscope.com. That's QUIKSKOPE and learn more.
And then like the way he explained to me was, he's like, because when I learned the business, I covered freight right before I sold, so you can understand the thing you're selling, right? You deal with the problems, and that teaches you what problems you solve for your customers. And the way he described it, like, it makes a lot of sense. He goes, well, think about it. Like, right at around 25 loads a week, how many of those trucks do you need to reschedule if you have one customer and 5 loads a day, right? And like, no matter how good you are at your job and how long you've worked with these carriers, things happen, right? Like, truck is delayed at the delivery, truck is stuck in traffic, maybe there's a breakdown, there's some issue that came up, right? And right around 2025, you start having enough need for recovering loads to keep them all picked up 5 a day that you kind of need to access the open market. And if you're only shipping 5 to 10 loads a week, he's like, that person can pretty much work directly with a trucking company. And if they all don't need picked up on the day they're supposed to, they can just wait for that carrier to send another truck tomorrow. Like, that's not a problem. They can save money, and it's not too much of a headache for them to need to pay to go get trucks last minute. So like, that is always the line that I kind of have in my head. And like, in my first conversation or two with anybody, I'm trying to get that question answered. That's my qualifying line. If you're not shipping around that or more, then like, probably not that fit to be working with a brokerage. Like, you could probably rely on maybe a broker here and there, but like, you're not going to need the services we provide as much as a company that's shipping 5 to 10 loads a day, because some of those trucks they schedule just aren't going to make it. They're going to need last minute assistance. That's what we provide.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Here's another one. Carriers are your customers too. So I'm huge on this, and I have met plenty of what I would consider like scummy freight brokers that don't follow this. Is that you should be treating carriers with the same level of attention and respect as you do your customers, because they are just as important, in my opinion. Just like you said, if you have to reschedule a load because the carrier falls off, that tells me that you don't have a good carrier relationship with that driver or with that dispatcher. So some of my favorites are when you don't even have to think about where's my truck or what truck am I going to use for this load, because every Tuesday and every Friday, Jimmy from Great Lakes Trucking is going to be hauling this load of mushrooms for me, right? He's going to be picking it up. I'm going to definitely verify with him, hey, you still good for that Tuesday pickup? Yep, all good, boss. Sweet, awesome. You want to get to that point. That is like, we had an episode where we went through like the evolution of what a book of business looks like, and it starts with like, yeah, you're just cold calling, and then you're working off load lists and you're quoting, right? And then you got like a customer that's giving you opportunities, and now you've got repeat business out of a customer, and now you've got contract business, and as that goes along, right, your relationship with carriers should also be developing, in synchronization with it. Like when you're brand new booking your first load, you don't have any carrier relations, so you're probably posting to DAT and calling out on some carriers, etc. Right? You're trying to source capacity from the open network, open market. Whereas you get to the other side of that spectrum and like, whether it's from just your experience or your relationships or TMS data, like who is the best fit to haul this load from us, right? And there's tools to help you bridge that gap. Genlogs, great example of a way to source capacity because it has a lot of the data for you. But your own TMS, like, hey, this guy's been running these loads and we've got a note in here that he prefers to operate in these states, right? That stuff is key. So the same thing goes with like, accessorials and fines and stuff like that. I had a dude that I had to have a stern talking with last week who the driver was, driver confirmed pickup on, I'll just make it up, on Tuesday, right? Customer was able to switch the appointment if needed, but the driver said, yep, I can do Tuesday. Didn't show up till Wednesday. So naturally the customer docked a certain amount of money. Well, this guy tries to make money on that and says instead of a couple $100, I'm going to deduct $2,000. And it's don't do that. First of all, if it's an egregious amount, but second of all, you don't have any documentation that even supports that number or where it came from, other than the fact that you probably just wanted to make an extra $1,500 this week or whatever the case might be. But don't beat these guys up. And try to make money off it. The same with if a customer is paying a Tonu for $200, that goes to the driver. Don't pay him $100 and pocket $100 yourself. So things like that, because when the market is super tight and you need drivers, that is when it's going to bite you in the butt if you've treated these folks like trash. So any thoughts on that one?
Other than that, I agree with it 100%. I mean, it is really simple things like they're people and you need them. We don't ship things. We coordinate with other people that do that, and you should treat them exactly the way you would want to be treated. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that's been around for thousands of years, treating other people the way you want to be treated, and it pays huge dividends in business. It saves time. It allows you to make more money. It allows everybody to win. There's so much more to be done and so much more opportunity to grow when you do things ethically and you do the hard things even when somebody else doesn't want to. To me, those are some of the things that are probably most important in this business.
There's another one on our list here that kind of ties in with it, which is to document everything.
Huge.
So this is huge, right? Whether it's the customer side or the carrier side, documenting is extremely important. So for the example we just gave about finding a carrier, if you don't have a clear verbiage or a rate for different things like detention, layover, late, whatever it might be, right? It is very hard to fight that uphill battle. I have seen people file on a broker's bond, and the bond company is basically dude, just just pay it, because we're gonna pay it out, and you're gonna pay us back. So just pay it. Like, we don't want to deal with this because you did not have clear documentation. We don't care what your customer said. You never told the carrier this. So same thing with your customer. Like, if your customer has, like, if they're just like, yeah, we're gonna deduct $1,000 for this because it was, we had the driver had an issue. It's like, what? Like, and that's a tough one when you're dealing with your customer who's literally giving you the business. That's like kind of a tough situation to navigate through. But document like times, like when the tension comes down to like literally like what's the timestamp when that driver checked in and checked out. Like those things really matter when it comes to, whether it's $50 or $500 or whatever. The numbers are very, very important.
Here's the thing I do want to add is I think lots of people end up in the habit where they don't put this in the TMS because they think it's in their email. Like, you really should get in the habit of uploading all that documentation into the TMS for a lot of reasons. One, everybody can see it in your company. Almost everybody works remote at some point or another. And no one else in your company can see your email. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been working in a brokerage where, like, we had this happen over the weekend once where, like, the other owner's getting phone calls from drivers, or I'm getting phone calls, and we go to help and we pull up the TMS and we're like, we just genuinely don't know what's going on. None of the communication that they've had is in there. The load's not updated right. None of their conversation with the dispatcher is in there. So like when someone comes in to help, they're just literally blind and can't do anything, right? Like there's a reason all this information lives in your TMS. It's so everybody in the organization can access it. Like, again, I got into that habit because I worked at a big company. When you have after-hour support or a team that's going to work over the weekend, if it's not in there, it might as well not exist. Like, it doesn't help anybody if it's just in your email or in your head. You need to have it in there for lots of reasons. Your accounting team, invoicing, things later, like documentation is absolutely essential. We do business in information. That's literally how we make money and create value as freight brokers, is we take information from one party and get it to another. And sometimes things don't go well. Everything that happens in between what did and what should happen needs to be written down so that somebody else can pick up where you left off.
Yep. 100%. I'm like, I might overdo this, but I write stuff down like locally all the time, and then I make it a point to have like a shared version of those notes with anyone who has to see it. So like I'm even doing it on like the administrative side for Pierce right now, which is like compiling like a cloud-based. We've got like trackers that track certain things that are important for like 10 different people to see at any given point in time, where certain people can edit them, certain people can just see them for visibility. We've even got like SOP like documents put together so that like anybody at any time can access to understand. Like one of them was actually about I think it was something with Assoceros like we just mentioned. So like if there's like when in doubt, like reference this and this will tell you exactly how we're going to handle X, Y, and Z. So yeah, that's huge. Speaking of which, we had one on here, follow the processes, stick to your SOPs. So I can't like emphasize this one enough, but like have processes in place, as basic or as detailed as they, need to be, but have something in place for a variety of reasons. Like, for example, if you're going to be out one day or you're on vacation and someone needs to be able to step in and handle how your customer's billing gets done or how the customer's tendering happen, whatever, like someone should be able to see that. Also, when it comes to bigger processes that are broad, like how do we vet carriers and onboard them? Like there should be a set process that's written out, and when a new rep comes in and gets hired, they know that like, okay, we've created a list of rules that we want to check to make sure that carrier meets X, Y, and Z. If they don't pass this basic sniff test, we will not use them. That could be they have insurance, they have an active authority, right? You might have other ones that are subjective. Like you might look at safety scores or how long have they been in service, etc. And then how are we going to go through the process of onboarding them? Is there a contract in place? Do we use credit applications for new shippers? Do we vet a shipper's or a motor carrier's email address to make sure that it matches the FMCSA? Like whatever the case might be, having processes in place like that will help you scale and not have to feel like you're carrying the weight of everything in your head on your shoulders because it's written down somewhere, right? And also it helps you just breathe easier knowing that, like, as long as I follow these SOPs that I've created that are time trusted and proven, everything else is okay, right? Like, so and we were talking early on about how, like, fraud's gotten wild. Like, this is when I highly encourage people that if you've got high value load, or maybe it's the first time with a certain motor carrier or a first time with a certain shipper, and you want to make sure you're doing an exceptional job, this is when you want to look at implementing processes like tracking for the entirety of the load, using a tool like Quickscope to verify a carrier's identity before they get loaded at that pickup location, using things like a walk around, right? Hey, take a quick video, walk me around your truck. I just want to make sure we've got everything here that looks good. We've got the right equipment, or, pictures are good too. But stuff like that, like I've seen the wrong size flatbed show up. I've seen the wrong type of open deck trailer, the wrong size tarps, you name it. Like, this stuff could have been prevented if we followed a certain set of instructions. We have a dispatching checklist on our website. It's a great one to help you remember the questions to ask, customer and carriers, to make sure you've got the right driver in the right place at the right time with the right trucks.
I mean, it not only does it prevent things from going wrong, it allows you to train new people. Two, I think the other thing you said, which is super important, is that, like, if you ever want to actually take a day off, someone else needs to be able to step in. If you don't have a process that is step by step for how you do what you do, nobody else can pick up where you left off because they don't know how you did what you did, right? Is a huge one. And also, like, you can't improve. It is very difficult to find where something went wrong if you didn't standardize it. Like, if you're just randomly looking at information about a carrier and then you get a load stolen and your boss goes, well, hey, how did you miss this? You're like, I don't know. Like, I looked at the carrier, it seemed fine. Well, did you look at this? Did you look at this? Well, I don't know. Maybe. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. Well, that's probably why sometimes your loads don't get stolen and sometimes they do, because you're not consistent with how you're verifying or vetting these things, right? Oh, my customer's only paying 9 out of every 12 invoices we send. Why? Oh, because sometimes I add the PO to the load, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I remember to put it in there, sometimes I don't. And sometimes the customer pays the bill and sometimes they don't. Then you end up spending way more work later trying to fix the things that you didn't do consistently, because it's inherently going to create opportunities for errors or just things that are going to go wrong. And it's just like, and even if you ever dream of automating anything in your business, you do the same thing with a computer. Like, I'm spending a ton of time training models and trying to see what work we can take off of people that they don't want to do anyway. You do the exact same thing with an LLM. You train it, you need a process, you need the step-by-step. What happens here? Yes or no, it should do this. If this happens, then this happens, right? If you can't map that out, you can't train a computer or another person to help with it at all.
Yep, 100%. Last big one I'm going to hit on here is know your numbers. So understanding things like profit, your margin, cost per load. It's not just about revenue, all right? We have probably a handful of episodes that break down this, and we've told many stories about it, but when it comes to brokering, like, when I look at, if I'm going to hire somebody new, let's say they have a book of business, right? I have oftentimes heard people, they talk about their book of business in their top line revenue. I don't care what someone's top line revenue is. I want to know, what is the margin in that, right? So,
hold on.
Yeah.
Do you know there's a famous old story, right, where this business basically sells $5 bills for $2, right? You can generate a ton of sales selling a $10 bill for $5, but you're losing $5 every time you do it. You're like, oh my God. And that's what lots of businesses do, right? Like, hey, I raised a bunch of money. We're selling a product for way less than it costs us to make it, but eventually we'll make some money down the future, right? Like, that rarely ever works out, right? Like, yeah. You need to know what is hitting the bottom line, not just the volume of dollars, because it costs money to process that volume of dollars through the business.
So, super basic, right? Here are some basic metrics. I do this with every new rep at 1 month, 2 month, and 3 months. I sent one out today. I go through their start date, so I know how long have they been working there. How many customers have they set up? How many loads have they moved and we've invoiced? What is their total revenue? What is their total gross profit? And what is their margin percentage on that business, right? Those are basic metrics. You can get way deeper and look at like what's their average. And I do this on other reports I have is like I do a company wide and by the rep. I look at average revenue per load, average profit per load, and I've even broken it down to like what is somebody gain or what are we making or losing per month from a rep. I like pro rata everything out, like cost of support, cost of software licenses, literally everything. You can get really granular on it if you want to, but basic numbers, you need to understand like, are we making money? Is this business actually a successful business or is it not? Because I have seen people that come in and their margins are too thin, their customers are paying too slow. They have a claim that was short paid, but they're not considering that in the big picture numbers. This stuff all matters. And there's a reason that when we teach the TIA students the freight brokering, like the basic lessons of freight brokering, there's an entire lesson dedicated to finance because we become the bank of the transaction. And you can find your entire company in a bad situation, if not going out of business, if you don't keep a close, a close read on like what is your financial wellness for the company. So some people have the whole idea of like, oh yeah, I'm going to come in really cheap, try to win this customer's business, and then I'll just like slowly mark the rates up over time. And it's like customers that will move to you because you're going to run for them at a loss, and they don't care about service. When you raise your prices, they're just going to move to the next dude that's going to do the same thing. So it's a slippery slope. But yeah, know your numbers. I know you've had. Well, let's see. Steven had one, and you've had one. Basically, like where the biggest issue going on or frustration has to do with finances, like the financial part of the business, not getting a customer, right? So, like Steven's thing was like the system was tracking some like wire fee the wrong way for like 2 years, and they were overpaying people, and like no one was even tracking it. You had one with like factoring data's coming in but not going out, or vice versa. The whole thing is like behind all this, hey, we find trucks for shippers, is we are the financial institution essentially that is supporting this whole supply chain. So numbers are like super important. That's why we had a guy in one of the TIA cohorts that was like, he was the CFO for a company. He wanted to learn everything else, but like, you have very important players there. So
it's probably one of the most important things I think I learned. Like if I look at like just traditional schooling, right, whether it was high school through college, and like I majored in finance and accounting and minored in econ, and it's like econ has like the most practical analogies because you learn kind of like how markets work and they react and supply and demand. Finance teaches you how all these numbers relate, and accounting really just teaches you like the format of which to learn to interpret those, right? So it's like you need to understand accounting to do finance because you don't know what the words mean that are associated with the numbers, right? Like it's a number, but like, is it an expense? What kind of expense? Is it like a fixed expense, a variable expense? And like, to me, like anybody in any business, if you want to run a business, I feel like you should at least learn like 101 finance stuff. Like you don't need a master's degree in finance to know this stuff. Most of that stuff isn't practical anyway, right? Like once you get into high level finance, you're doing calculus and you're trying to predict things that like are never perfect anyway. And they have very little practical examples or uses unless you're literally working in finance. And like, I feel like everybody would benefit just understanding how to read a balance sheet, an income statement, and understanding how those things interact with each other, right? Like what is an income statement? What does it tell you? What information is valuable there? And how does that relate to the balance sheet, which is all the money we owe everybody and all of the assets this company has? Because like the interactions between the two are really useful and they tell you the health of your business. So it's like, yeah, you go to see a doctor to tell you about your health. You don't need to learn everything about medicine, but it's probably pretty good to understand how your cholesterol relates to some of these other things and like some basic understanding so you can understand what they're trying to tell you. Just because you have a CPA that runs all your books and maybe you have an accountant and a finance person, you should understand the basics so when they're talking to you, you know what that practically means in your business, right? we're not making enough money. Why? That answer could have 100 different reasons, right? To know and to pinpoint to improve your business, you've got to be able to look at it like, oh, it's because our variable costs are too high. Oh, it's because we spent too much money on a fixed cost. Maybe we didn't need that big of a building. We can downsize and all of a sudden become profitable. You can't actually act on that information if you don't understand what it's telling you. And I'm sure there's tons of courses you could take. Like even just buying a book like Finance for Dummies, honestly, would probably be a great step if you're running a business, because these are things that are so often overlooked. And to your point, like, usually, if you don't understand these at all, you get to a place that is very, very bad before you realized it, and you could have addressed it much sooner, right? It's like, oh my God, we can't make payroll. What happened? Oh, that is way downstream from all these decisions you could have made like months in advance that could have prevented that.
Yep. Yeah, income statement's huge. Like I do it every month. I'll look at a division and say, okay, I literally go top line, which is it's literally the top line, the revenue, and then all the way bottom line is the net income. That's why they call them top line and bottom line. You got like 50 other things in the middle. I just pulled up a recent one, but I can see like X million dollars of revenue. That's the top line, and X $100,000 is the net income. So after all expenses were paid, we know that for every dollar that comes through in revenue, X amount of pennies is going to be the expected profit. And if I see that number getting too low, then I know that we're running too thin on margins somewhere, or we're spending too much somewhere else. The higher it gets, the better, obviously. But it's when it gets below a certain point. So like that 3 to 5% is kind of like what I've always seen as like the benchmark that for a brokerage. Like if you look at everything, this is at scale too. So like whether you're agent based and you're paying high commissions but have a low onboarding cost, or if you're W-2 based and you have lower commissions, but you're paying salaries and benefits and turnover on employees that don't produce anything, if you can get to that like 3 to 5%, and that's a monthly return on your money, like you annualize that, that will tell you if you're a successful business long term. If your company is doing, what does that annualize at? Like somewhere in the 30 to 50% range versus putting your money in a CD, right? That's why we run businesses and put all of our blood, sweat, and tears into it, is to provide jobs, service people, and ultimately it's going to create profits. So good stuff, man. Any other extras you want to sprinkle in?
A 5% monthly return when annualized is approximately 80%. It's a pretty big number. Yeah.
There you go. Well, that's probably saying 5%. Is that compounded? Because we're not.
It's compounding, yeah.
Yeah, well, this wouldn't be compounded though.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would just be 5% times 12 if it's a 30-month rolling thing, which would be 60%. So still good, right? Like if you're, 3 to 5%, that's really good return on your money. But you got to have money coming in the door to make money on. So that's where sales and growing your business comes into play, which is where all of our other tactics and tips come in. So pick up the phone, go out there and make an extra 10 calls today that you wouldn't have otherwise made. This is a numbers game ultimately. So if you are new to brokering, definitely understand that you will not succeed by just sending emails. You will not succeed if you make 5 calls a day. You will put in a large volume of phone calls. So get used to that, and it becomes second nature to you. Sweet, man. Well, I look forward to the next 100 episodes. Go up to 400. Yeah. It's good. Glad to see that we got that much content out there. I wonder how many gigabytes on the internet servers we're taking up these days.
When did we start this? 2000? You started in
First
19.
episode
2020?
went out September of 2019. 2020, started doing it, rebranded to Freight 360, and it's been great since. We brought Steven on in 2023, the freight intern. We've done a mix of in doing things ourselves internally and outsourcing it, and we've found some ways that work and some ways that don't work. But yeah, just like growing a brokerage, man. Like it's all it's the long game, right? So you gotta play with the big picture in mind. Good stuff.
That is wild to think. We've been doing this for 5 years now.
Mm-hmm. Wild. Well, cool, man. We'll put a bow on it with that. Final thoughts on episode 300.
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, You're right.
And until next time, go Bills. That wraps up this episode of Freight 360. Check out the show notes for links to anything that we've referenced on this episode. And make sure to visit us online at freight360.net to see our entire library of episodes, videos, blogs, and more.
And make sure to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily and weekly tips and content. If you'd like your question answered on the show, fill out the Contact Us form on our site, and we'll see you next week.